Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast. I'm Ewan Graff, and as always, I'm joined by Lachlan Teely.
On episode 208, Ridley Scott just won't stop. The MCU cannot fail with all these movies coming out, and there are so many casting announcements. Let's just say I think that we are definitely now a movie news podcast. I have to say it. There's just so much. There's a whole other document in the doc for this podcast, for this episode, just on news. There's just so much of it.
Lachlan, you watched Rebel Ridge, and I caught up with the Speak No Evil remake. I also caught Piece by Piece, Time Cut, The Outrun, and more. And then we'll take a look at maybe the worst trailer and movie premise I've ever seen. I'm not exaggerating here. And we'll also take a look at the first trailer for Steven Soderbergh's intriguing ghost POV movie, Presence.
I thought that was because that last line, that second last line, oh no, it isn't there. I wasn't reading it. I thought you were talking about that one. Anyway, I got I thought there was a spicy take for a second there. Anyway, speaking of, what else could go wrong 90 minutes before live television on national TV? I wouldn't know, because this is pre-recorded and we can edit all the shit stuff out of this podcast. And if we were to do it live, I don't want to after seeing this movie, because holy shit, if it's anything like the heart-pounding 90 minutes of Saturday night, I don't want to ever do this shit live, Ewan. I think we should always be pre-recorded, and I think it's better for that. Later on in this episode, you'll hear our thoughts about Saturday night.
Although we do sometimes question what is the show as well, but we do know that the intro is coming up next. We are professionals.
This is a professional podcast.
Yes.
Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Hello there.
Which actually,
Did you
this
get
is gonna
me a
be
hat
a
as
bit,
well?
Yes.
So I've got Dooncam. It's just a camera with my Dune steelbook.
All right, welcome back, Lachlan. It's a big week for news, as always. Like you said, we're a news podcast this one. I don't know what it is at this, like, because I think Hollywood kind of shuts down over the holidays, right? So I feel like a lot of these casting announcements are like to get ready for production next year. I don't think a lot of them are shooting now, because movie productions are usually about like 2 months at a time, and yeah, we do have that like holiday break there usually. But so much casting news. Do we want to let's not waste time? Let's get straight into it, right? Let's
straight into it. Let's go.
Yep. Let's have a look at the quick news of the week. First up, Ridley Scott says he is developing a new Alien film.
Spider-Man 4 will now release on July 24th, 2026 in theaters. Destin Daniel Cretton, Shang-Chi director, is now officially set to direct. It will release between Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars.
We also have the release dates for the upcoming confirmed MCU films. That includes Captain America 4 out on February 14th, 2025. Thunderbolts out on May 2nd, Fantastic Four July 25th, and Avengers Doomsday on May 1st, 2026. So the second half of 2024 is looking rather empty so far for next year's MCU lineup. We also got, like you said, Spider-Man sandwiched in between on July 24th in 2026, and then Avengers Secret Wars comes out on May 7th, 2027.
We also have all of the release dates for upcoming MCU TV shows. What If Season 3 will come out December 22nd. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man on Jan 25. Daredevil Born Again getting the release date of March 4th next year. Ironheart June 24th next year. Eyes of Wakanda August 6th, 2025. Marvel Zombies October 2025. And Wonder Man December 2025. There's no exact dates for those last two, but at least we have a sort of month, but we could probably assume that's going to be moved, because I don't think any of these have had solid dates the entire way through its production.
That is true. And what is to be noted about these really briefly is that it's a mix between live action and animation as well. It's a bit of everything that you got in there. Then a live action Oregon Trail movie is in the works at Apple.
Cillian Murphy says he hopes his recent Oscar win helps him to tell more Irish stories in cinema. He says, "Oh, there's certainly no shortage of literal work in Ireland to adapt for film. We are so lucky in Ireland, it's extraordinary." Sorry, I won't do the accent.
I kind of want to keep that in.
He says, there is certainly no shortages of literary work in Ireland to adapt for film. We are so lucky in Ireland, it's extraordinary.
Yeah, happy for him. Hope we get to see more stories like that. And then we do have the first look at Jeremy Allen White as Bruce Springsteen in the new biopic. The movie releases in theaters next year.
Skinamarink director Kyle Edward Ball is set to direct a new horror film, quote, The Land of Nod, for A24.
Alan Richardson and Amber Midthunder have been cast in the action thriller Painter. The film follows a young woman trained from a young age who must employ every skill to rescue her father after he is kidnapped. It's written by the John Wick writer Derek Kolstad.
Isa Gonzalez, Poppy Liu, Taylor Page, and Will Poulter have been cast in Boot Riley's next film, I Love Boosters, also starring Kiki Palmer, Naomi Eki, Lee Keith Stanfield, and Demi Moore.
What a cast. Then William H. Macy has been cast in Edgar Wright's Running Man remake. That one also stars Glenn Powell, Josh Brolin, Katie O'Brien, Lee Pace, Michael Cera, and Emilia Jones.
Massive ensembles in pretty much every single one of these articles that we've read so far. And the English Squid Game series is officially in the works. David Fincher's name is attached for developing the series. We also have a new trailer for Squid Game Season 2 that came out this week.
Yeah, we'll discuss that in a bit. And this English adaptation from David Fincher will also be set in the United States. Greta Gerwig is in talks with IMAX to put her Narnia movie on 2,000 screen before the movie releases on Netflix.
Johnny Depp is set to star in Day Drinker alongside Penelope Cruz for Lionsgate. His most high-profile attempt yet to make a Hollywood comeback. The film will be directed by Mark Webb. And yes, the humor does not pass me by a film called Day Drinker.
Yeah, I think Lionsgate is just like Infinity Stone assembling flops at this point. Yeah. Robert Downey Jr. says he refuses to have an AI digital replica replace him in any project, whether he's alive or dead. He says, I intend to sue all future executives just on spec. When he's dead, my law firm will be very active. So, good stuff there.
Peter Cushing will be recreated using AI for a new documentary about Hammer Films. The doc follows the story of the film production company that developed the iconic series of classic goth, horror, and fantasy films.
Then Dave Bautista, Cate Blanchett, Channing Tatum, Steven Yeun, Zoe Kravitz, Lea Seydoux, and Riley Keough have been cast in the Zellner Brothers Alpha Gang. The film follows a group of alien invaders who disguise themselves as a 1950s biker gang on their mission to conquer Earth. Now that sounds fucking fun.
The Wayans brothers will reunite for the first time in 18 years to develop Scary Movie 6. Sign me up.
Sony is shutting down Firewalk Studios, the studio that created Concord.
Jessica Chastain, Brendan Fraser, Bryan Cranston, and Al Pacino will star in the JFK conspiracy thriller Assassination, directed by Barry Levinson. The film follows a journalist who suspects Lee Harvey Oswald didn't act alone and sets out to find the real killer of JFK.
Ke-Huy Quan will star as the lead in a new action thriller Fairy Tale in New York from Sisu director Jalmari Helander. The film follows a cab driver who takes one last ride before celebrating the holidays until he must relentlessly pursue criminals who have stolen his kid's priceless Christmas gift.
Lily Gladstone and Bryan Cranston have been cast in a new action thriller, Lone Wolf. The film follows a troubled vet struggling with addiction who has been recruited by a contractor for a covert government plot to assassinate a high-level politician.
A Jack Ryan movie is in the works with John Krasinski set to reprise his role, and the film may even get a theatrical release.
We finally got the first look at Billy Zane as Marlon Brando in a new biopic set to premiere, the Waltzing with Brando, at Torino Film Festival later this month.
And if you have a look at that first image, then my God, a makeup and hairstyling Oscar is... I was fooled. I thought that was just a picture from The Godfather. Really impressive. Lily James and Pierce Brosnan will star in a cliffhanger reboot with John Collet-Serra set to direct. The film was originally meant to be a sequel with Sylvester Stallone, but Stallone dropped out and the film went under a creative overhaul.
Anthony Ramos and Ben Mendelsohn have been cast in Rob Savage's Mole People. The horror film follows the twisted society living in an abandoned tunnels under the streets of New York City.
Uzo Abuda, Ben Mendelsohn, Lakeith Stanfield, and Juno Temple have been cast in Roofman alongside Channing Tatum, Kirsten Dunst, and Peter Dinklage. The film follows a robber who lived at a Toys R Us store, broke into more than 60 McDonald's, and then emptied the cash register after herding staff into freezers. We've already talked about this one, but we got a couple new cast members added to that exciting film.
A live-action Lego Ninjago movie is in the works at Universal. What will they think of next?
Well, a couple more Lego movies. Legos is teaming up with Universal for 3 films that are set to direct by Jake Kasdan, Patty Jenkins, and Joe Cornish.
Over at Warner Brothers, they're currently developing a Game of Thrones movie. There is no director or writer currently attached, but that is something that they're developing.
Yeah, really, really early on, but hey, we can be assured that maybe we'll get into theaters. Maybe it will be like in 20. We'll never know with Warner Brothers. Then Anna Kendrick felt gross about making money off Woman of the Hour, so she ended up donating all of her pay to anti-violence charities. She said, it felt like the least I could do. Really, really good thing. We'll talk about that a bit more later on.
There was a Timothée Chalamet doppelganger event that happened, and Timothée Chalamet crashed his own lookalike contest, and also the NYPD put one of the doppelgangers in handcuffs, which was wild. It was just a wild event.
Yeah, the guy who orchestrated all of that is also the one that like a couple months ago did that cheese ball event where he was like standing in Lincoln Square or somewhere like that, and was just like eating a whole like thing of cheese. Like, it's a guy that's always at the center of these viral things, and I think he was the one who was ended up being arrested. But yeah, we also got Jumanji 3 that sets its December 2026 release date. But that's all the quick news. A lot of them, man. That might have been our longest quick news we've ever done.
Yeah, it's not really quick news, is it? It's just news.
It's news. It's news at this point. Yeah, that's why like we are considering how we put it into our show, because it takes up a large chunk of it. But I do enjoy keeping up with the latest stuff. We've never done casting news, and it feels especially exciting after we started doing a bit more news coverage right around the time when the strikes were happening, and seeing it really amp up when it comes to like this cast, movies.
Yeah.
So many movies being done that aren't just like, oh, here's another sequel in the works from the Marvel universe. Feels great. Yeah, speaking of like continuations of stuff, Game of Thrones movie, we don't have anything on it yet. We don't know what it's going to be about. But just on that alone of like, let's say a 2-hour Game of Thrones movie, is that something you're interested in, or do you think they're better off staying in the like series realm?
Ultimately depends what kind of story they're going to tell. There's definitely sort of I don't want to say like adventures, but like little side spin-off adventures that they could definitely do.
Duncan and Egg
as a film. Duncan and Egg. That's a not bad one they could probably do as a movie, but
no, that's a series. That's a series.
That's a series, yeah. But it's probably also maybe a narrative that they could make into a movie if they really tried. But
fair.
I don't look. There's always a Game of Thrones thing being developed at the moment. Like every other day, there's like, there's a Game of Thrones spin-off, and George R.R. Martin's always just like, I hate the last season of Game of Thrones, and everyone's like, yeah, we all do. That's why we're trying to create better things. So I don't see why a movie wouldn't work. I think that there are some interesting elements to Game of Thrones. I think that at the end of it went from fantasy to more high fantasy with more dragons and zombies at the end of Game of Thrones, and you obviously have House of Dragon that has the dragon side of it there, and I feel like the start of Game of Thrones was an interesting part to be, where there were no dragons, there were no White Walkers, it was just it, but there's also that mystical element, so they could definitely do some sort of like a Dune doing Dune Prophecy.
Yeah.
As like
I've seen the first episode,
the opposite way around. Doing it the opposite way around, obviously, but they're telling a narrative separately that is probably not going to work as a movie, but work as a TV show. They're trying to do it the opposite way here. There are definitely stories that will build the universe in this way, but a movie is a big scale thing. Like, a movie is a big moment, and it's not like it gets pulled out over. It can like 6, 8, 9, well, probably 6 weeks, because most of these TV shows are like 6 episodes now. But yeah, I feel like there's a good opportunity here. it totally depends who gets put on to do it, but I'd be keen.
Yeah, what is interesting to me is here what you brought up with Dune Prophecy is that, you got a movie or a franchise and then you do a TV series to expand on the lore. In the case of, I guess, Dune Prophecy, it's set, I think, 10,500 something years before, Paul Atreides is even born. Then you get something like The Penguin, which is basically an in-between thing for the Batman 1 and 2. And something like Rings of Power, which does the simple like prequel thing, or also House of the Dragon, who also does the prequel thing. It's just the other way around, that a successful series gets a movie, and it's not like, for example, like Breaking Bad that had with El Camino like a basically like an extended outro thing of like a coda movie at the end there. So yeah, whatever they end up doing, like you said, a bigger budget holds a lot of possibilities. But fantasy, I think, in that realm of Westeros, there's a lot of stories that you can tell with that. But to get people to care about like new characters in the Game of Thrones universe that quickly, I feel like it would be way easier to already attach to something that is already established. I feel like that would make a less interesting movie. But I could see them like trying to attach it to like something that people are already familiar with.
Why not have like a 2-hour Game of Thrones movie, and it's just whatever happened to Daenerys' last dragon when it flew off. It was
it's
just
a
like
crossover with the Mandoverse.
Yeah,
You
of
also
course.
get Star
little,
Wars
little
come
baby
over here.
Grogu in it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Grogu but dragon. No, but like to that extent, like Disney is doing that. 3 seasons of The Mandalorian concluding in a movie, and that's maybe the closest that like, I don't know. Sometimes that's done with anime. A lot of that is like done that you have the movies in between seasons as well. So I got no clue where they go with this Game of Thrones movie, but yeah, we'll keep you posted and we'll be on the lookout for this. But like many projects, this could also just kind of fall apart at any moment too. And then to me, I think it's interesting that Greta Gerwig is in the position to also push for a theatrical release with Netflix. It's not like they're opposed to it, but more
I think
for
she totally has the ability to.
Yeah.
After
I
Barbie,
think,
she could just pull a finger and just twist someone's arm and just something will happen at Netflix.
Well, it's like for them, for me, it never makes sense that Netflix doesn't do this. Because yes, stuff gets really big once it hits Netflix, even if it came out before, was on the streaming service and they license it there. Usually ends up picking up steam because everyone still is on Netflix, and that's where like the conversation is happening. But the only reason that they, like, for example, the Piano Player that's coming out like in 2 weeks, it comes out this week in theaters. It's one of the more Academy Awards like aimed, maybe more prestige films that they do that with. But I feel like, right, they said that they want to kind of move away from that a bit. Maybe it ends up happening, whatever. You can't really plan for that, but they're not going to invest into the auteurs anymore, like a 250 million for Scorsese. But with this, that has such a wide appeal, and Narnia being one that also, depending on it, could be, not a PG-13, but under that, probably is going to be PG-13. But you still could have like a pretty child-friendly movie that would play really well if in theaters. So them not putting it there, I don't know if they would miss out on. I mean, they did it with Glass Onion, which really didn't make any sense to me when they spent so much money on it. In IMAX would be fun to have it in there if this goes through, but it's hard to say. With Netflix, I feel like they have a better track record than like Warner Brothers and some other studios, but they're not clean squeak and good here as well. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And then what do you think about David Fincher using his time wisely? He can't do anything for the third season of, I'm blanking on it right now. What was it called? Mindhunter. But I guess he has to do a English. Well, also there was this Parasite thing that they, the American Parasite series that they announced like right after that won the Oscar or even before, and we still haven't seen the light of day of that one. Yeah, what do you think about this? Obviously Fincher, I feel like, can adapt things in an interesting way, but yeah, I don't know. Do you think his time is well spent doing the English remake of Squid Game, or?
Look, I don't think it's his best time spent on something like that. I think what we could be seeing is a David Fincher one for you, one for me mentality from Netflix,
Yeah.
because he might not want to do a third season of Mindhunter, where I would love a third season. I think the whole fucking planet, I think anyone who's ever seen it would like a third season of Mindhunter. And then he's gone and done The Killer, and then he's been asked to do and to be fair, like, I think
he's done Mank as well for Netflix before, right?
Yeah, an English version of Squid Game by David Fincher just totally makes sense. I feel like if Squid Game didn't exist and David Fincher just came out with this, it was something that I could totally believe came from his brain.
You think so?
With all of his... Yeah, oh yeah. I feel like it would be, like, if he gets it as a script, he would totally make it. I think he was right up that alley with how fucked up it is.
I mean, yeah, it's basically just a game, but it's like institutionalized in like this one big thing. But it's also he already has made a movie about like people fucking with someone for their own entertainment through people who just have access and are rich and powerful. So I could see him especially adapting and doing a bit of the writing as well, or having a good collaborator to do that. It could make for a quite interesting story, because these I feel like I'll talk about this in a second, but the Speak No Evil changes that they made from the Danish version to the English American one also made quite a bit of sense. So if you can do that and culturally have it tap into something that capitalism bad in Korea, but also capitalism bad especially in the US. So I don't know, there's stuff to comment on, but I feel like we're not gonna get the social commentary.
Do you ever think we're gonna get another like Mank from Fincher?
Mank. You mean like another biopic on like some old time artist?
Just like completely left field for him, because he as I said,
you mean like Oscar baity?
I think an American or an English version of Squid Game, it makes sense coming from David Fincher.
It's more commercial.
Mank is just it's a whole different thing, dude.
I have no clue on what like his stance is on future projects. He seems to me like a guy who just kind of takes it as it comes and
does what he does. Yeah, fair.
He's someone who's not really interested in like sequels and all that, I think. So I don't know. I feel like he's unpredictable that way. I feel like you couldn't really tie him down to anything, which makes him such an interesting like director to follow as well. But yeah, it's at least a quality seal. This will be, even if it's like a Squid Game thing, it will be at least like a 6 out of 10. Like that. Even the shortcomings of The Killer, I feel like you still have like at the core a pretty entertaining film. Even maybe if you don't connect with it on like a subject level. And then lastly, we reviewed Woman of the Hour last week because you also caught up with it. And there was like an interesting clip and an interview stuff that I've seen Anna Kendrick talk about that basically they produced the film, it was funded and all, and wasn't really that concerned with it making money, in the position that you are in. I feel like that's really a great one where we just talked about like the one for me, one for you for Fincher. For actors, it kind of can be the same if they're part of a franchise, that they like end up getting like a lot of money if they're in series or in franchises. And then you move on and you get to do a bit more of the subtler stuff. Like a lot of people from the Twilight series, like Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, have been able to do that. And then Kendrick is just kind of the latest who doesn't, I guess, it doesn't really concern her work just in front of the camera, but also behind it. And with the story and the type of thing it's about like a serial killer to make a profit off of the like depiction of the death of other people and like, that event. Felt gross to her, so she ended up donating all the money to anti-violence charities. And I think it's a noble thing that like isn't just like virtue signaling, I'm doing this because I don't want to make a profit off of this, but it was more from, I really believed her when she said like it made her feel gross about like making money off of this. And we talked about this as well when you reviewed it, that it doesn't feel like the exploitative thing that Netflix often does with these true crime things, and especially being picked up by Netflix. I think this was also low-key kind of a statement against them, although I don't think that wasn't her intention, but to me it read as that. But yeah, what do you think about like her decision to give the profit she made from the movie away?
Why not? I think she's in a place where she doesn't need the money. So
exactly, yeah.
To prove her point, I think it's it's a fantastic power play. Let's say that.
Yeah, it's a good
And
statement.
there's definitely an opportunity that someone could have taken and made this exact same movie, but way more exploitative. From that serial killer's perspective, she came in and she demolished it and took it from a perspective that didn't glorify him. So and it was still in a way that it made him, a serial killer that you would remember in the likes of those
Yeah.
Jeffrey Dahmer like types, but not to that level of glorification online. Thanks Netflix for all of your true crime documentaries. Or romance. I think they're also in the romance category on Netflix as well. It's super weird.
Isn't there You, for example? Isn't he literally a serial killer? And
he's a stalker. I think
he's
he's
a
a
stalker.
stalker.
Okay.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that
different
series,
things.
but well, not too far
Yeah.
off. Sometimes it's just like one Pokemon evolution away from being a stalker to a killer. But yeah. No, ultimately, I think this is. By the way, I do have something that I need to show you. Look, I got this pen, and when I press it twice, it lights up. It's like one thing that you can write in the dark. I haven't used it yet, but I feel like it's too bright to use in a theater. But
If you
I
use
got
that
it
in
for
a
this.
cinema, someone's gonna punch you.
Yeah, I know.
I use glow in the dark ink when I write notes in the cinema, and then I have
That
a little
is
UV light.
Funny. UV light. I wouldn't
like a
wouldn't shine a UV light in a theater. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, no, absolutely
That is a horrible
not.
idea. You never sit down again. All right, let's have a look at some of the trailers that came out this week. First up, we do have a series over on Netflix that releases on November 21st. It's called A Man on the Inside and follows a man hired by a PI to work as a mole at a retirement home suspected of elder abuse. It stars Ted Danson and is created by Mike Shore, who did The Good Place, Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He was also part of The Office, and it's based on the 2021 Oscar-nominated documentary The Mole Agent that I have not seen yet, but I've heard really good things about it. Ted Danson was also the lead in The Good Place. I think a really solid show overall, at least for like its first 2 seasons. I had quite a good time with it. This seems to be in that same like quick paced comedy mold. I'm going to check this one out. It looks pretty fun. What did you think, Lachlan?
Looked a little flat in terms of visually, like it just was a bit flat, but I feel like it could be a lot of fun. I do agree. I haven't sat down and watched Good Place, but I have heard many good things. I've seen same thing with like Parks and Rec, but I've seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so I'm sure up there the comedy is going to be great. But I'll check it out.
And then we got the first trailer for Presence that's out early next year on January 24th. We will have a review for it up by Kevin pretty soon because he got to see this at the Ghent Film Festival, and he's been pretty positive about this film. It's called Presence, and it's a story that is told from the point of view of a ghost. It stars Lucy Liu, Julia Fox, Chris Sullivan, Kalina Liang, and it looks quite, gimmicky in a way that Soderbergh really likes to do his films. And it's often then the question, can that gimmick that he employs, like shooting on an iPhone or whatever, can that carry a whole premise of a film, or is it in some way just like in service of trying out something fun? I think from what I've seen, this looks at least intriguing to me. I think one of the detrimental things about it is like, okay, how long is this film? Because if you spend it in the time of like, you didn't end up watching Skinamarink, right? That was like a atmospheric thing where you just kind of stare off into the distance. But yeah, it's 85 minutes. I think if it's like a tight movie, this could be quite fun. I'm reluctant to say that I feel like this is a like easy hit and a good idea. But what do you think?
I'm pretty keen for this.
Mhm.
It reminded me of a Ghost Story in a way. It reminded me of the new is it Here, the one with Tom Hanks coming out, where it's like
Mhm.
one locked off shot, that's it there, and I'm kind of intrigued because I've heard pretty good things about Here, and I've heard some
Really?
decent stuff
I've o-
about this. Yeah,
I've
I
only
don't know
heard
what it is,
mainly
but
bad things about it
oh,
for some
okay. Well, I guess
reason.
we have different groups.
Yeah.
But I've heard some decent things about it, and
I'm
I'm
interested
in
to
the
check it out
boat
too.
for locked off shots, and I'm keen for weird camera movements because it's the perspective of the ghost or whatever. So yeah, I'm kind of keen for this. I'm in.
We'll check it out. Hopefully, it will get a release for us. I feel like Soderbergh will definitely get a release for you. His most recent stuff has at some point, sooner than later, actually sooner, yeah, than you expect, arrived on like VOD. So yeah, we'll try and give it a watch and review it as soon as we can. And then yeah, we do have this the another trailer for the second season of Squid Game that comes out December 26th, and it takes place 3 years after the original movie, kind of similar to, I guess, when the original Squid Game series came out and was this cultural phenomenon that hit during, I guess, the peak of COVID. And player 456 gets back in and comes back with a new resolution on his mind, and I'm just kind of questioning why why is he back. And the trailer hasn't really sold me on why, other than we need a second season that takes place within, you know, the Squid Game games. What did you think? You keen to
Yeah,
dive back into the
I
world?
was less keen about this than I was the David Fincher adaptation, but yeah, I will probably try to catch it when it comes out. I did get pretty engaged with the first season, and I will say that I'm interested to know why he goes back. And it's
Yeah,
interesting that it's the same games. It's the same games every time, it looks like, and
yeah.
that intrigues me as well. So the trailer did intrigue me, but I'm not as excited as I am to see David Fincher do the same thing.
They need Epic Games on it, you know, they switch it up all the time. You get like a Will Smith skin and like fucking Jigsaw in
Yeah.
it, and you know, Squid Game stays the same. It's gonna fall off like Overwatch. Then we got the first trailer for Queer, the second film of this year from Luca Guadagnino, that will have a lot of people who like challenges, like Call Me By Your Name, not vibe with it. I can already tell you that it's going to be like one that people say like this is his biggest miss. I feel like it's definitely not up there as one of his bests, but we got to see and review it out of Venice. It has a vague release date so far in November. I assume it's going to be limited in a lot of places, and likely even for here in Switzerland, we don't really have a release date for it set yet, but at least early next year is when you can expect this film that is set during the 1950s in Mexico City to come out in theaters. It stars Daniel Craig as this American expat in his late 40s that leads a solitary life amidst a small American community. And then Eugene Alderton arrives, a young student that stirs up William's life and makes him actually care for someone for a change. And this movie is really divided into 3 chapters that are distinctly different from each other. I think it kind of loses steam as it gets along. The first 2 are quite good to me, and then the third one just kind of goes off the rails. And I think there's a lot in there to be studied, but also a lot of people are also calling those parts of it kind of pretentious and empty, and like really want to build up to something, but they don't ultimately do that. It's going to be an interesting discussion point. It's not going to be like one of those like Oscar awards players. It's not going to be up there, but regardless, like an odd movie that is worth discussing. From the trailer here, what is interesting to me on like Rotten Tomatoes trailers, this has a ton of dislikes, and I don't really. I also skimmed through the comments. They are a cesspool of idiocracy. Like I didn't see like a reason for why people really don't like the trailer. At least on that page. But yeah, what do you think of it?
I'm intrigued. I don't read comments on trailers for the most part. I scroll through like the list, like first 2, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Usually I don't either, but I was just surprised of how much of a big reaction this was to this trailer. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just because it's called Queer and Gay and Daniel Craig, and I was like, oh, that's our James Bond, and there were like a ton of like, James Bond taking it from behind. I was like, okay. Cool.
Great comment, Ewan.
Great comment. Yeah, no, that's cool. Good stuff.
No, I'm keen. I actually really didn't because I there was a lot of interesting visuals in the trailer, such as like Daniel Craig looking through the building and you see his eye. So for me, I'm intrigued because I do enjoy that kind of stuff, and I really liked the visual style that it did. It was very much like watching Poor Things. When you watch Poor Things and you watch a couple of these other films, it was really crazy the visual style of Poor Things, and very much so deserves every bit of praise it got. I'm very keen to see what this can do for me. I mean, you've seen the film, so
Yeah,
you can tell me whether it's visually pleasing or not, and
it
you can
is.
put me down. Yeah, it is. All right, so sweet, cool. I'm gonna like it then.
Yeah, I think at least on that level, there's much to be appreciated. I think that Daniel Craig is also good in it. Drew Starkey is also really good in it. It has some really explicit sex scenes that is going to make a lot of people squirm when they see this maybe with an audience. I really enjoyed it. I feel like it's too long in parts where I didn't want it to be that long. I think the first part of it is just like that's the part that they cut 30 minutes off for the Venice premiere. And I would kind of love to see an extended part of that first bit where it just kind of wanders the street of Mexico City, goes out, makes like loose connections, and is caught up in his own loneliness that he tries to escape, but in this unreciprocated love that he's looking for in this like really much younger person. There's a lot in there. I think Queer is a ton of fun to talk about, and I'll definitely revisit it as well when it comes out. Hopefully as well in theaters in November around the world. But we also have the worst trailer ever, maybe. And also, so BuzzFeed Studios, quality stuff. They often team up with Lucy Hale, and the distribution is done by Lionsgate. Again, I feel like Infinity Stones, they got them all, man. It's one snap, and the whole film universe is just going to be like halved, and we are only getting Marvel films from there on out. But so this movie called Fuck, Marry, or F, Marry, Kill, because you can't curse in a title. Because it's definitely aiming to be like a PG-13 type of movie about someone trying to figure out between three guys who is the serial killer. I think it doesn't have the tone down for a dumb premise like that. It plays it semi-seriously, or at least on what maybe a BuzzFeed employee would find funny. And that is horrible. That's one of the worst things. Like, whatever you find on BuzzFeed, and that is like the lowest form of comedy. Yeah, man. This one had me question, like, why do we even make movies? Like, what the fuck is this? Well, what did you think?
I hated the trailer through and through. I hated every single minute of it. I do not want to see this movie, I think. Just didn't really. It's just. But it's not the worst trailer, but
maybe there's worse ones. I think the premise itself is just so bad, and it was such a stark contrast to talking about Anna Kendrick and like what she did with taking this sort of like violence depiction in movies seriously, and then this was like, oh, BuzzFeed, what about like if I figure out if I fuck him, I marry him, or I kill him? And then it turns out all of them are like big old walking red flags. It's just
yes,
I don't know, bad. I only covered it because I wanted to shit on it, and that was fun. So let's move on. But if you don't want to shit on us, that sounded way more crass than I intended it to be, and want to leave us a rating, that you can do that over on Spotify and all the podcast apps on Apple Podcast. Helps us out a bunch. And if you are over on YouTube, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and maybe sharing it with a friend who would also appreciate us talking about, I guess, Fuck, Marry, Kill. But Lachlan, let's get to the stuff that we've been watching this week. And you've caught up with a big old hit that came out, I think, at the start of September, if I remember correctly. Made waves with Rebel Rich. So yeah, what did you think about this one?
I didn't know what I was getting myself into, if I'm totally honest. But what I can say is I was thoroughly entertained. I actually thought that as an introduction of a new like action character, we're not one of these Jack Reacher types, or one of these sort of Tom Clancy-esque characters, or James Bond, yada yada yada. To have an introduction of a new, action-based combat character, Terry Richmond was surprisingly engaging, because he had so much mystery around him, and he kept it such. He kept his cool for the most part, but he also let out his emotions, which you don't really see that often with some of these characters, is that he actually did have a decent amount of range as an emotional character. I don't think I've seen Alan Richardson's like Jack Reacher cry once in the TV show. He's just a hard, badass dude, and I get it, but for a character to have that range within 132 minutes is pretty good. So for me, I thought it was is super entertaining, and then I thought the movie did start off quite slow. I won't lie. I actually got into the point where I was like, I might need to skip this one. I put it down and I came back to it, and I have to admit the second half of the film really kept me engaged and brought my score all up to 4 stars because I had such a great time watching that sort of shootout scene that happens towards the end. It was just a lot of fun. It just yeah, dude. It just kind of took me by surprise. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it kind of kicks off the story straight away and gets into it. I almost, if you told me that you are gonna watch it this week, I might have, because I had Jeremy Saulnier's Green Room just open. I almost watched that one. I was really close to seeing it, and I didn't find the time for it. But it had me like, this was the first movie I've seen of his, and he seems to have done like these quiet little like great 4-star movies that you don't hear too much about, and this one made a bit more waves. So I think it really like builds that tension up of the escalation point. You just kind of keep wondering, what is this guy capable of? Because he feels like he's holding back, and once it unleashes, it is so good that it doesn't disappoint. And I feel like if you do that setup and you don't deliver, then you got a pretty bad movie on your hands. And this movie like went above and beyond at doing that. So I was really entertained as well at like a great core, and it was such a simple story too, right? There's nothing overly complicated to it. And Aaron Pierre as well. I think him as like this imposing force. I'm really happy that he got a bigger role with like lanterns. I don't know if quality wise that will be there, but I could just see him be a really interesting presence to use on a cinematic level. And I hope he gets to do a lot more stuff. He really, I can see no one else in this role that like that I could think of as an actor that would work so well as he did in this. It was really impressive.
He's the upcoming voice of Mufasa.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, no, it's also like his voice in this is just like such a standout too. It's perfect. You just kind of want to listen to the guy.
He could put me asleep. I would listen to the guy for hours.
But also watching this film, I kept not wanting things to escalate because he had such a calming presence in this chaotic thing that like he was keeping it down and everyone else around him kept escalating it. And I found that such a perfect juxtaposition with the way the tone of his voice sounds. It feels a weird thing to like even comment on, but like it just kind of works really well. So yeah, if you haven't already, that one's streaming over on Netflix, and we can both very much recommend it. 4 out of 5 for both of us. Yeah. Anything else you caught up with, or
Nope.
Nope, that's all good. I watched something on Netflix as well of the recommendation of Kevin. He told me to watch The Shadow Strays, which is an Indonesian action film. And if you look at Indonesian action, you can see the Raid 1 and 2 being listed among them. Now, this one is definitely like very much subpar to like that franchise. It has action in it. It's very bloody, but it's also incredibly over the top. I didn't feel like the action scenes were like, there were a ton of them. They just never had like that sort of impact, and it then also is trying to set up a larger universe of these type of assassins that are like a pretty typical story of, you got these like really efficient killers that come from a system that they don't question, and throughout the film they start to question the system, and it plays out in a very expected story way. That's fine if the action is the center point of the film, but it can't really decide if it wants to do more just the action or also character stuff, and the character stuff just really fell short for me. It's still, really over the top action that you might really enjoy. I gave it like a 3 out of 5. Then the Outrun, we're gonna talk about that a bit more on the Ghent recap. It's a new one from Nora Fincher, a German director who did Systemsprenger, System Crasher a couple of years ago, and Unforgivable. And this one had a great lead performance by Saoirse Ronan, who's like this drunk who's trying to get her life in order, and it then jumps back and forth in a non-linear way to tell us her whole life. And to me, it felt like really all over the place. That you have a central good performance. I think a lot of the writing and even the cinematography stuff with that uses shaky cam during her like lower moments, and then is physically bringing in the stability when she's doing better, was to me just so gimmicky that I couldn't really get into this one. It has a standout performance by Saoirse because she can't do bad, but yeah, it's also like a 3 out of 5 to me. Speak No Evil remake, I was really skeptical about this one because the Danish one, I think I didn't love it as much as others did, with how like dark it got. It's about this family who invites another family back home, and the more and more they are there, there's these certain inconveniences and politeness that you can't really say, okay, we want to leave, you're making us uncomfortable. And it's supposed to be a bit of like a social commentary on how we behave, on not for our own self-preservation, but just in what is expected in politeness. And this one comes from James Watkins and has a really, really great performance by James McAvoy as the lead in it, who's the head of the I guess the bonkers family, the one that's off the rails and crazy. And what this one does is just change the story quite a bit in the finale, and has that like typical escalation and just big moments of like an actual like action finale, almost a thrilling action finale. And the first one didn't really have that, the original. So it has its own things going on. I think both of those films are seems to be a through line for me here, like a 3 out of 5. I don't think either of them are like amazing. And then I got a couple, in theme of, I guess, belated horror films coming out. We got the one that's over on Netflix as well, Time Cut. That was one of the worst films I've seen in a long time. I was looking forward to it because it's like it takes place in 2024 when a teen travels back to 2003 when her sister was murdered, and she was born after, so she never met her sister. So she goes back and kind of meets her sister a couple days before she gets murdered. And if that premise sounds familiar, they literally did this last year with Totally Killer. It really isn't something original. It just kind of wants to go into that nostalgia bait of the 2000s. And I guess that one, Totally Killer, I think was on Prime. It wasn't on Netflix, but it falls so incredibly short on capturing the 2000s in a fun way or in a good way. It tonally is all over the place, from like the stakes of a killer being on the loose, and it's just like all around horribly edited as well. Like there's so much ADR in this, like pretty bad performances too, that aren't helped by the writing. Yeah, no, this was definitely a horror film that you can skip out on. And then I Never Let Go, the one with Halle Berry, I think was pretty equally bad. I think it comes down to giving so much to do to kid actors once again that it's just unfair. You can't expect them to carry a movie like this when it's about like Halle Berry, who is tied into the mystical nature of like keeping them protected through a rope that is tied to their house, and they have to keep praying about like the evil not sucking them in and like taking them in. And it's like zombie-like creatures that are out in the woods. And not to spoil it here, but like, they take a bigger part of the film that like it feels just kind of aimless for a large chunk, and just has that central thing of the mystical side of it, like the religious angle and all that. Like the survival thing is not really that intriguing, but it has a bit of money behind it. You can see that like Halle Berry was in this, so they got the budget to do like a bunch of effect stuff. I just think the story itself was really lackluster. And then called Omni Loop, a time loop movie with Ayo Edebiri, which is something that always opens the door for me to be interested in something. That one just kind of was a bit of middle of the road thing. Really nothing to much to comment on that beyond, hey, it exists. If you like her, then you might have a good time with like the energy that she brings to a project. And then the Pharrell Williams documentary that was then turned into like a Lego aesthetic. I also was able to catch that, and I think it. I don't think it justifies being in Lego, but it has some great uses of like the type of condition or like thing that Pharrell has to visualize like music and just auditory things, that you can really amp up the colors when you do it in Lego. And that part was really fun, but other than that, it's a pretty standard documentary that just uses Lego to animate on top of that. It's still like basically in documentary filmed, and then you get those scenes recreated and a bit stylized, but pretty decent. Gave it a 3 out of 5 as well. And then I caught the latest episode of Penguin. The Penguin, the second to last episode comes out. By the time this episode releases, it's already out, and I think it will head to a pretty fun finale. Although I think I was expecting the show to hopefully be like an 8 and 9 out of 10. So far, it's like going around like somewhere between a 6 and a 7, which is a bit disappointing. But I think the leading into the Batman with a bunch of fun characters that we got to see with Kristen Milioti, Sophia, are worth checking it out. I don't think the way that it's like going, it's going to be essential to watch this one before you see Batman Part 2. But it's fairly entertaining. But Lachlan, that's all the stuff that I've watched. Sorry for my monologue once again, but just busy stuff. So, dude, so many movies that are released every week, and unfortunately, I think this was there a single movie that was above a 3 out of 5? I guess not. I just all gave the kind of a 3 out of 5. Anyways, let's talk about Saturday night, Lachlan.
At 11:30 p.m. on October 11th, 1975, a ferocious troupe of young comedians and writers changed television forever. This is the story of what happened behind the scenes in the 90 minutes leading up to the first broadcast of Saturday Night Live.
It's the latest film from the Ghostbusters Afterlife and Juno director Jason Reitman, and has premiered earlier this year at some festivals, including TIFF, and I think it also played in New York. Comes in at a runtime of 109 minutes and has so far been received quite positively. I think better on the audience level than on the critics side. It's a 3.6 on Letterboxd, a 7.4 on IMDb, and a 63 based off 41 reviews over on Metacritic. It had a budget of around $25 to $30 million, but has only grossed $9 million domestically so far in the States. And I guess now it's rolling out internationally, as Lachlan got to see it in a theater as well. For us in Switzerland, we don't have a release date for it yet. And I think that's also how it is in the large chunks of most European countries. And international release would probably take a bit. And it's also a movie that is about like a cultural cornerstone for especially an English speaking or English seeking audience, that seeks that is looking for the comedy space there. I personally have not seen a single episode of SNL. So I'm really not the catered audience here. I know it's a bigger thing that our previous co-host Kelly is like a huge fan of SNL, which, by the way, belated 26 happy birthday wishes to her. I think she turned 26 like 2 or 3 days ago at the time of the recording. So happy birthday to you. But it's also already out on VOD November 12th. So even though you might not get this in a theater, internationally, you'll get to see it pretty soon. So we will not hold back most of our spoiler thoughts here, although what you can expect is the 90 minutes in the lead up of a TV show that is public. The movie ends with that TV show starting. And that was fun to like kind of go back and see like the first sketch that they end on, and that's still being like easily accessible, right? Because it was recorded, it's out there, and to like kind of reference back to that. And then it's basically a lot of like impersonations of these people, and there's just, I think, to me, maybe it's because you and I have been watching so many relevant things over the relevant films of the last 4 years, that a ton of these people, even in the smaller roles that don't have more than maybe 4 credits, still seem really familiar to me because I've seen them before. And with that, maybe not for a general audience, but for me, I felt this cast was incredibly stacked with people I knew. But yeah, how did you feel about like the cast, the story, and like on what even is the show?
I was thoroughly impressed by pretty much everyone's performance. I was locked in, having a great time, and I think the reason behind that is how this was sort of shot and brought together, because it is a very anxiety-filled 109 minutes. There is very little breathing room except for a moment right at the end Everything is just
Yeah.
constantly nonstop. You are constantly with Lorne Michaels as he goes around the studio trying to get this sort of ready to rock and roll, and you kind of do offshoots with Chevy Chase and Rosie and Dan Aykroyd as well, and you get these little moments as with like Garrett, for example, who I found, just a small little side character,
Yeah.
at least in terms of like the overall narrative that kind of paid off in the end.
Yeah.
They kind of kept me engaged, but it was the quick nature of how quickly we entered a scene to how quickly we were exiting a scene. And absolutely anything with Nicholas Braun as both Andy Kaufman and Jimmy Henderson. Because I will tell you right now, I didn't realize he played both. I knew he was obviously Andy Kaufman because you can see him, but I didn't realize he was
Yeah.
Jim Henson
Yeah,
until he was in the elevator talking to him. That was literally the moment I realized, because I finally heard his voice and I was like, oh my God, it's him as well. So
Yeah.
I didn't realize they were together.
It's an odd choice to have him play both, but yeah, I
I think
didn't
it's
mind
a
it.
perfect choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything from that, and then even the reveal of Willem Dafoe coming up with like his
Yeah.
hand to his face, and I was like, ah, yes. I didn't. I
Yeah.
think I forgot that Willem Dafoe was in it, and I got super excited because I just seeing him just engage me with the film a lot more, because I absolutely adore him as a actor. I really did enjoy the entire thing. I did, just from start to finish, was just exciting. The biggest letdown for me was the fact that I didn't laugh.
Yeah.
And I was really hoping for more or better comedic moments. After all, this is a very funny TV show, and Saturday Night Live does get me to laugh with some of its sketches. For me, there are moments that made me chuckle, but there weren't moments that made me laugh, and that kind of sucked, because I was really hoping this film would nail some of the comedic moments. I think it tried to do the anxiety thing, drama thing, and that's the direction it went with. That's perfectly fine, but it is a show that was designed to make people laugh and have a good time and poke fun, and you do get comedic moments, but they're not so much comedic in the same sense of Saturday Night. They're very, let's just say, situational. Like the
Yeah.
weird spot with let's take like John Belushi in a bee costume. Like the ridiculousness of the bee costume was kind of funny. Him ice skating in a bee costume was just kind of funny, but it wasn't making me laugh. So yeah, that was probably the biggest letdown for me. I felt that everything else was quite good.
I think the standouts are the impressions of some people who seem to be spot on. If you check some of the other sketches that they end up doing on Saturday Night Live, right, on the tone of the voice, the delivery, I think especially Cora Michael Smith, I've seen a lot of people also already point that out as Chevy Chase, is to me was like the highlight, because he's someone who's like very quick, very quippy, and fast on his feet. Always has like a comeback to everything, every comment, and when he doesn't, it feels like okay, there's a bit of an ego thing. I feel like you're not like idolizing them too much, where it's just like, look at these great legends of whatever. When on a character level, for the show itself, to me, I couldn't help but feel it was so caught up with the legacy of Saturday Night Live and how great it is and how monumental like this change is, that it felt to me not really earned in this movie. It felt like it was self-congratulating a bit too much, when in this film it didn't really deliver, like you said, on the comedic things that I expect to happen. Even if it is chaotic in like the lead up of it, I still expected that to be more comedy to go around. And I think a lot of it was also slightly poking fun at how over the top the cast members were and everyone on set was. And a lot of that humor just like didn't really land. I was like, oh yeah, that's a situation, but it wasn't really super funny to me. And I don't know if that's like maybe also because it is a certain time period that like comedic language has changed a bit, quite a bit. And I think this movie is I assume pretty accurately depicting, how these people behaved at the time. And maybe I'm just like not as vibing with it as much now as I would have done if I were around during that time. But like you said, like the pace of this film as well, from moving from scene to scene to scene to scene, it captures that, like, the hectic nature of the lead up to this production, I think, quite successfully. What it does with the like huge ensemble cast is pretty impossible to, like, then give us an interesting storyline for all of them. So it ends up focusing mainly on Lorne Michaels trying to keep everything together and then basically be the stand-in to prove everyone wrong that this is just a bunch of young people with aspirations, and they're, like, set to, like, to me, one of the things, I don't know if this is true or not, I really didn't do the needed, like, research into this, but, like, the way that this NBC set it up so they would fail and they could easily go to a rerun, the way that, like, people are won over, it's just to be like, if for lack of a better term, too American for me, too cheesy towards the end there. But what did you think about like the, I guess there isn't much of a story, right? It's more character moments.
Yeah, there's very little story because it's a 1.5 hour like period of story that happens. So moments are stretched out, other moments are kind of wrapped up quite quickly. I feel like the moment you have to breathe is nice. I think it's probably one of the only moment we're actually connected with the characters was when Lauren Michael was at his lowest, just before, like 20 minutes before shooting, or going live, as they say in the industry.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, fuck it, we'll do it live.
Mhm.
That was probably the only genuine character moment that we actually got, and then you get a little bit more of that with him and Rosie, played by Rachel Sennett, who did a great job with holding hands. You don't really get much character development between each of them. You don't really know
Yeah,
the relationship
because it's just
between
90
each
minutes,
of them.
right?
It's just
Yeah,
90
yeah.
minutes, and to be fair, you can grow it, but when you then have Cooper Hoffman's character then yelling at Lauren Michael in the stairwell, you're like, but who are you? Like, I don't know, I don't care.
Yeah.
So the emotional weight of this scene doesn't matter. The intensity is there, and I will give them that because everyone does a fantastic job for the performances, but emotionally you're not invested. And I get it. It's Saturday Night Live. We're not gonna be emotionally attached to Chevy Chase and Lorne Michaels, and I totally understand that it's probably not a priority over just having the anxiety thrill narrative that they present instead. But I genuinely enjoyed, what's his name, going around in an ice rink in a bee costume. That was just
Yeah, John
John
Belushi.
Belushi.
Yeah.
I just, because his character was pissed off, he was going back and forth, and then he was the only character that had a genuine arc and actually gave me something like emotional instead of just being a piece of shit.
I don't know. To me, it's also like the way that he appears on set at the end there, where was trying to have that tension up. Was, is he going to come out of the door or not? And, like, I don't know. Even that part to me was like too quick in the editing on what they leave out. And I think that the Lamorne Morris character, Garrett Morris, right, was basically there to have that core theme of what actually is the show kind of be represented in a character that is questioning why he's there and what the show is doing. I think it didn't do a good job of letting me know they were like, okay, we have too much stuff that they want to cram in, and like it's too much. It's like, oh, we gotta kick something out, and that wasn't accurately communicated on. Okay, but what is it actually that's going to be cut? Because we don't have that much time. You kind of are expected to go in, maybe even knowing what the first episode was, and like the stuff that they like. I don't know. It requires you have a lot of knowledge about all of these people, and maybe even appreciate that, like, oh, this is that character that's in the background. What to me was the funniest in the whole film was the censor lady just being like absolutely shit talked. And I found those bits quite funny whenever they were happening. And then they did it like 3 times, and it was like, okay, well, you overdid it now. But I was just wondering, like, a lot of these people who are in it, who are obviously like well-known people, are just there because they need to be there, and it's, I don't know. It also takes, I assume, a lot of liberties to tell the story, right? Then I'm just not like that sold on. Okay, there's the old crew is like poking fun at them as well, and then they literally, I don't know what exactly, with like one moment or one scene, they convince them all to, okay, now we're going to lay the bricks together, right? It's literally this metaphor, and then even J.K. Simmons like letting them not go to the pre-recorded thing and doing it live. All of that feels really rushed in the narrative sense when basically like 90% of the movie is all like doubt, and then it's like, okay, we are all in. Something about that just doesn't make for that interesting of a narrative. But yeah, I think it's just mainly the performances that stand out in here. Yeah, we haven't even talked about J.K. Simmons yet, with like his big old cock from Milton Berle. It's known. It's Mr. Television, and he has a large member. Yeah, no. J.K. Simmons being like this guy who I guess you know from history. I didn't know about Milton Berle or whatever his name is. I had that moment with like, I had a thought when I was watching the scene between him and Chevy Chase, where they go like back and forth insulting each other, and he just whips out his dick. Like, what the fuck? To me, it was like, oh, these are two assholes at the same time on screen, but I'm feeling like the younger guy is the lesser asshole, at least at this stage in his life. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think about like Chevy Chase? Obviously, knowing where all of you've seen Community, right? All of that drama from there, and what he's like behind the scenes. Yeah, what do you think about like someone like him? Obviously, being at the core of a film like this, right? With his long career.
Well, if you're going to tell a story and he's then controversial at the end, you can't just rip him out because he's a core part of the story.
No, that's not what I'm advocating at all. But like, yeah, how do you feel about like him? Because I think he's pretty funny. He's like, he has comedic chops.
Yeah, he's great. I actually enjoyed how much of a dick he was, because all these people were actually trying to be nice to each other, and then you had like the genuinely like, oh, I'm gonna make fun of you, but I don't really, like the old guys not helping with the bricklaying, and then they're like, let's help him, like it wasn't harmful in any kind of way. Where Chevy Chase was just a dick, and I get it. He's a superstar, next big thing, and he played the character well, and I didn't. Again, nothing blew me away. Everything was just fine.
Yeah. But to me, what was surprising is that Dylan O'Brien, Danny Aykroyd, was not really in the movie that much. I expected him to be, maybe, I don't know why, but I expected him to just be a larger role. That's maybe just because Dylan O'Brien was playing him too.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, anything else to touch on? I think, like you said, there's not that much to talk about. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And as someone who hasn't
everything
seen
is
like
solid.
the
Music is solid. Cinematography is solid. It's all mostly like handheld. Looks like it was shot on film. Let me confirm that.
Yeah, no, it was actually shot on 16mm then. Which kind of makes sense to, just give you an immediate feel of the time period.
Yeah. Performances, fine. Nothing crazy. Narrative, bleh. It's just 90 minutes of chaos.
Yeah. And if you're all in for that, I think it's pretty entertaining. Again, I think it was just being about SNL, you expect maybe there to be more jokes. But much like the impressions that they feature a lot on that show, some of them really, really nailed it. I think the standout really is Corey Michael Smith as Chevy Chase. There's something really captivating about his performance. I gave it a 7 out of 10, 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5. What about you, Lachlan?
Yep, I think personally it was all fine. There was a sort of standout, Tommy Dewey as Michael the writer. I felt that his back and forth was always really well written as a writer. That kind of makes sense that he can kind of articulate himself, and I felt that he was just always so well worded. So I appreciated that. I enjoyed the film as an entertainment piece, so that's why I'm giving it 3.5 out of 5. I would probably be honest. I think it's probably a 3. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think it's a 3.5 movie. I think it's more of a 3.
agreed. Yeah,
But
it's
I think that
closer
it entertained
to
me enough.
3 than a 4 out of for me as well. But like, yeah, it's just kind of enough, yeah, entertaining. So, Lachlan, we've spent 90 minutes. I don't know how long is even Saturday night. Is it usually 90 minutes? I don't even know, because that would be my tie over to like, hey, it's 11:30, 1 a.m. in the morning. What do you do after this film, a double feature pick? You've been under the hot lights the whole time. You touch your head. Ooh, it feels like you're pretty hot. So I'm gonna pick Saturday Night Fever as a double feature pick for Saturday night. So yeah, Lachlan, what about you?
Yes, that was a fantastic
Thank you.
transition.
Cast me to Saturday Night Never or whatever, the off-Broadway version of it.
If you thought the intensity of live comedy is intense, I think that following it up with news anchorship would probably be a fantastic thing. So that's why I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to recommend as a double feature Anchorman, The
Anchorman.
Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Actually, pretty funny movie as well. Not just tense and about news and stuff. It's mainly a comedy. Whereas this one, I wouldn't really classify as it's more a drama than it is a comedy.
It's more a drama, yeah.
But let's have a look at the week ahead. The film's releasing in the week of November 8th. The start date in theaters and on VOD from November 4th through 10th. First up in US theaters, we are getting Heretic, the Hugh Grant led horror film from A24. Then we also got The Best Christmas Pageant Ever from Lionsgate. Out in limited release, we got Christmas Eves at Miller's Point. I watched this one and I think it's a pretty horrible movie, but hey, if it intrigues you, it might be for you. Then Bird from Mubi is also out in limited release in the States. And we also got the release of The Piano Lesson, which will be in, I think, pretty ultra limited release. I don't know if it will be playing anywhere near you, but this one will be out on Netflix on November 22nd. And yeah, we'll cover it. It looks to be a quite intriguing film that takes the two POVs, literal POVs of two kids who go through a pretty traumatic thing at a boarding school. I'm all in. This looks super well done. And then Small Things Like These is also out in limited release. Then over on VOD, we are getting the start of the second season of Arcane. We'll get to see this series play out, I guess, over the next couple of weeks. Out on premium VOD, we got A Different Man from A24. We also got the Outrun, starring Saoirse Ronan on premium VOD. Then over on Prime, we got a Look Back, a 58-minute long anime movie that is one of the highest rated films. Like, for some reason, it just like exploded and shot up all the way, like similar to The Wild Robot. It seems to be one of the highest rated animated films of the year, so go give that a try. And then My Old Ass, starring Aubrey Plaza, is also out on Prime. I caught this one. I think the premise itself is pretty like weird, but the movie comes together quite well. I can recommend that one. A Nick Frost horror film called Black Cab is out over on Shudder. A bit too late for Halloween, but hey, you'll get it sooner than later, I guess. And then the 5th season of Yellowstone returns to Paramount Plus after Kevin Costner is now really set on departing the series. They're trying to like close it out somehow. And then the second part of the 4th season of Outer Banks is streaming over on Netflix. In Australia and in Switzerland, we are getting Red One a week earlier than in the US. I say thank you next. No, thank you. You can just like get away with that movie. We don't want to see it. That won't be our main review next week. But yeah, you can go see it if you a week ahead of the Americans. I don't know if that's actually a win. Then in Swiss theaters, we're also getting Typisch Emil, which is a documentary about an iconic Swiss comedian, and Guido Clicco is out in theaters here, but that one already released on VOD internationally a while back. But yeah, you can go see it on the big screen in Switzerland. That's it for this week. Lachlan, next week we have not chosen a fixed movie to talk about yet. I think maybe it's time to catch up on a bit of animation. Maybe we talk about The Wild Robot. That would be the one that would make a lot of sense, but we'll keep you posted. And yeah, anything else that you want to leave the people off with as we head into this ongoing week of uncertainty when it comes to the U.S. election.
Oh, is that this week? Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
Literally the day after this episode comes out is the last
Good luck,
voting day.
have
So
fun. GG.
let's go. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. And maybe that's a good message to end it on. So we'll see you next week. We'll be here.
Bye.